morning again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this leadership lessons with Dr. Stan Maposa, and Dr. Stanley Maposa greeting you. Please subscribe to the program, to the channel, get notifications so that when we open each time, you know we are there. Like and comment. Your comments are really making us to improve this broadcast, because we believe we are really creating some lessons that future generations will benefit from, together, myself and you. Today I'm continuing with the second part of leadership styles. I mentioned that I'm going to be discussing about 14 leadership styles, and last week I discussed some. Let us move on and see the other styles that are available out there. And I indicated clearly that these leadership styles does not mean to say one style is better than another, but it simply means there are different styles depending on different companies, organizations, depending on individuals, depending on the purpose of the organization. And it is not evil, it is not bad to learn about various styles, so that in the process of learning of various styles you can even improve your own and maybe adapt certain principles from other styles so as to just expand and have a hybrid of leadership styles that you work on, and also understand even how your leader is leading you and why they are doing that. Sometimes it's very essential for even followers to know their leaders and to know the kind of style they are using and exactly why they are doing so that you can be able to work together and achieve more. I'm going to start with what I call the participative leadership style. This kind of leadership style is also known as the facilitative leadership. Participative, another name for it is the facilitative leadership. Leaders in this category do not only lead, but they also offer equal participation opportunities to their delegates or their subordinates. What that simply means is that in participative leadership, the leader does not want to shine on his or her own, but ensures that also the subordinates or the followers or the team members are part and parcel of the decision-making process, are part and parcel of the leadership process. They have opportunities that are delegated to them. They have opportunities also to do something. They have opportunities also to have their hands dirty in the leadership space. Many of these participative leadership methods get a taste of diversified ideas once the problem is underway. So when the problem is underway and people are busy solving a particular problem in a leadership space, the participative leader assigns different roles to different individuals based on the experience of those individuals, based on the knowledge of those individuals, based on the interest of those individuals, and says you do this part, you do this part, you do this part, you do this part, so that the different parts will make up a whole. I think Moses as example and Jethro example was a participative leadership example, because Moses was doing counseling alone the whole day. That old man Moses was doing counseling of the people alone for the whole day, sitting under a shade, counseling, people telling him problems. And he was busy, solving their problems, praying for them, until his father-in-law Jethro came. You know the story from the Bible. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came in and observed that for some time, and then he went to Moses and said, Moses, my son-in-law, you are going to die. You are doing too much. You are going to burn off. You are going to burn out. You are going to collapse. You are going to be fatigued. This is not healthy for yourself. I think he also said this is not healthy for my daughter. This is not healthy for your wife, for your children. You can't do this. Therefore, delegate, give some roles to other men that are full of the Spirit, that are that are mature enough to be able to handle this. Do participative leadership, delegate, give some people to do other things, decentralize these roles. Don't centralize these roles so that everything happens in the head office, everything happens in the national. Give to the provinces to do something, give to the districts to do something, give to the local municipalities to do something. So that's participative leadership. Privatization and decentralization are some of the biggest examples of participative leadership. Like in the country like South Africa, there are local municipalities, and the local mayor is a president on his own right within that local municipality. And you move on, you get to a province, you'll find somebody who's called the premier. The premier is a president of a province in his own right. He's got the power to make decisions, to budget, to employ people. He's got some people that are called MECs, who are really mini or junior ministers of different departments. Then you go to the national level, you find also, the president of the country also being in charge of the entire country. So all these three levels of governance at the national level are an example. They may not be an exact example, but they are a type of what is called participative leadership. This form of leadership, therefore, distributes power to more people by offering them a platform of voicing their opinions. So participative leadership ensures that people can voice their opinions, they have more opportunities for leadership, and this is the kind of leadership that is called participative leadership. The next kind of leadership is called transformational leadership. I remember some time we discussed this at length, but today I'm just giving it as an overview. Transformational leadership. Transformational leaders normally set up the ladder once they are employed in a small position. You may have seen one or two people in the company who get promoted and acquire responsibilities of a divisional head or manager or any other senior posts. These people are transformational leaders. However, there is also an element of brown nosing. We also call it favoritism, where a certain employer tends to stick around whenever a senior manager walks in. Do not be that guy. Do not be that guy who brown noses. No one likes that kind of a person. Your fellow employees will talk behind your back, and eventually you will be outcasted by them. If you go up the ranks this way, you are only going to be self-proclaimed transformational leader. No one else will have regard to your capacity. What that simply means is that transformational leaders are those people that transform and change from the lowest level up to the highest level. In other words, they are growing leaders that come from the shop floor, and bit by bit they are growing up the ranks without really brown nosing, as I have indicated earlier. But they are those leaders that really grew up within the process. And transformational leadership is more than just that. It really transforms the status quo. When we're talking about bringing in young people into the leadership space, that's part of transformation in the South African circumstance. When we say bring in women into the leadership space, that's part also of the transformation of leadership in the South African context and in other contexts around the world. Because for most of the time, leaders have always been gray and male. So we want some dark hairs, some young people coming into the space, and we also want women coming in and occupying positions, not by affirmative action, but because they are people, they are human beings, they have potential, they have capacity. It's not that we are bringing in you because you are a woman, but we are bringing you because you are a human being that has capacity and ability the potential just like any other man can do. In the transformational leadership, therefore, speak into those spaces where change is required. Transformation talks about change, changing from a caterpillar or a mapani worm into a butterfly. And therefore, everybody can transform and can be transformed, and all organizations can be transformed. Transformational leaders, when they enter a space, they make incredible changes, huge changes. They transform systems, they transform structures, they ensure that everybody is involved and participates in the leadership space. They are more or less participative leaders in one way or the other. And then there is something called transactional leadership. Transactional leadership. Transactional leadership has already been mentioned earlier in my discussions. If you go back to these discussions and these lessons, you'll find where we discussed at length about transformational and transactional leadership. I encourage you to do so, because I will not do justice to it in the short time that I have now. But when you go back, you'll find where we dealt mostly with transactional leadership. But this is a kind of leader who sets an effort versus rewards criteria in an organization. In other words, you do this, then you will get this. It's a reward and the punishment kind of relationship, so that if you do well, those that do well get more money, those that don't do well get nothing. Those that come early are recognized and respected, those that come late are rebuked. That's the transactional leadership. Those that work hard, they get a bonus, and those that don't get hard, they don't get a bonus. So it's transactional leaders. You do good, you get something. You don't do good, you don't get something. So that's the normally transactional leaders are good, but they can also get on your nerves if they start punishing people for underperforming. Those that are underperforming are in trouble with transactional leaders, but those that are doing well enjoy transactional leadership, because each time they are recognized, each time they are praised, each time they are given more money. But those that don't do well, they really find transactional leaders getting to their nerves when they begin to punish people for underperforming. The worst kind of transactional leader is a person who holds employees against their will to turn into submission or to meet a deadline for upper management's benefit. So some transactional leaders really force submission, so that submission will benefit the top management. That submission will benefit the leadership, the greater leadership, the board, the council, the governance structure of that organization. So this leader wants to look good to their leaders, and therefore they force and pressurize subordinates to meet deadlines, to spend in time. I've seen some leaders that really go around chasing for underperformance and rebuking people that don't underperform, as if they want the job to be done, yet they want to look good themselves. It's not that they want the job to be done, it's because they also want to look good at a higher level. And that's the bad side of transactional leadership, as I've already said. They set incentives and employees feel motivated to do their best. So those are transactional leaders. I don't know whether you are that type of a leader. Let's move to the next one. Is called the servant leadership. Servant leaders are humble. They lead by example, and they tend to put their company or organization and employees' needs ahead of their own personal agendas. I believe everybody knows that we all have personal agendas. We all have our own desires to grow, to be better. But some of these leaders that are called servant leadership put the agendas of the organization or the company above their own personal agendas. These types of leaders are rare. They are rare. They are very, very rare. I have to stop there a little bit. They are rare. Because they practice power sharing model of authority. A servant leader will push you to new levels of skills and responsibilities and vice versa. That is, if he or she sees the potential in you, that servant leader will push you so that you really unleash the potential that is in you. In extreme cases, servant leaders are often seen as lacking authority. Some people think that servant leaders lack authority, and that's their disadvantage. We think that this style of leadership is best because you are connected to your colleagues and your employees. We are said a servant leader. We think it is best in the sense that you are connected to your employees, you are connected to your followers, you are connected to your team members, despite that disadvantage that I've already said, that sometimes you are seen as if you don't have authority. In return, your fellows reciprocate, or they give back by demonstrating loyalty, because you are closer to them, because you are empathetic to your employees and your staff members and your followers. Then they give back to you as the servant leader by being loyal to you. However, there is a thin line where servant leaders are often undermined by employees due to conflict of interest. If you want to avoid employees stepping over you, you make sure you assert and exhibit authority. They have to know that despite that you are a servant leader, you are still their leader, you are still their senior manager, you are still their authority, you are still in charge, and therefore they must adhere to protocols. The next one is called authoritative or autocratic leadership. I think most of the people know autocratic leadership. When you talk about autocratic leadership, there are some names that just jump into our minds. People like Idi Amin, people like Adolf Hitler, Mussolini in history, and all those people that really ruled the societies with an iron hand. And whatever they say is what should be done. Whether it's wrong or right, it must just be done. When they say to you, jump, you must not ask, why should I jump? You ask, how high should I jump? If they say run, you don't ask, why should I run? You ask, how fast should I run? And this leadership style is an integral part of leadership style. Examples, it's part of the examples. Autocratic leaders are focused on the results-oriented approach. They just want the results. They just want the results. They may not be concerned about the process, how you get to the results. They just want things done. They mostly make decisions alone. They mostly make decisions alone. They tell you that when I was sleeping, this decision came to me, and it must be done. Sometimes they may have a committee or a board or advisors, but those are just a tick box. They have no power, they have no teeth, they have no say, they have no voice. The autocratic leader has a voice, has a final authority, and in most cases the followers are reminded that you must do this because this is my organization, this is my work, this is my calling, this is my purpose, it's me who started this, you were not there, and so forth. All those things people are always reminded. Autocratic leaders do not trust everybody easily. If you are a leader and you have so much trust issues, then you know that autocratic leadership has come to you, or is drawing closer to you. Autocratic leaders are exceptional in the military space. They are exceptional military commanders because in the military you don't ask. If you are told you shoot, you shoot. If you are told to kill, you kill. I had a stunt in the military sometime as I grew up, and those are the things that you were told. If you're told take cover, it's cover. If you're told roll, you roll. If you're told stop, you stop. If you're told mark time, about 10, shoot. And they say if you want to ask questions, you'll ask after you have done. You must do it. If you have questions, you'll ask after you have done it. Autocratic leaders, as I said, are exceptional in the military. They don't have trust issues for everybody. They also expect others to just do the things as they've been told, to be as passionate about their work as they are. However, in the business sector and in other sectors that are not military, this type of leadership does not work very well. The reason is attributed to the different environmental setup of an organizational structure, and this authoritarian kind of leadership is mostly old school and cannot be applied in various leadership spaces, as I've already indicated. Since all the employees are working as civilians, they are not in the army, they are not under any obligation to follow orders. Autocratic leadership is seen in a bad light in any organization, especially in the South African setup, where the Labor Relations Act talks clearly about how leaders should behave themselves in the leadership space. If you're an authoritarian leader and you're always telling people, I'll fire you, you'll go back home, you may be in trouble with the labor, because employees may go to the labor court and indicate that they were discriminated, and they were sort of harassed, and they were dismissed because of the way you were talking, the way that you were really addressing them and telling them every day that you will fire them. So you must be very careful about some of those words as a leader, because the labor court will not take lightly of those kind of words, because it's not in a military environment. It's in a work organization, it's in a workspace, and therefore you need to really comply to certain way of behavior as a leader. Never mind how angry you are, never mind how the people are not performing, never mind the people are not doing exactly that you need to do. There are certain procedures that need to be followed. It's not in the army that you say, up, everybody goes up, down. For example, in a work environment, you can't tell somebody to go and make tea for you if they're not employed to make tea for you, because you're a leader. You can't say, because I'm a leader, you're an intern, you're a young person that has come to an organization, go and make tea for me. No, I was not employed to make tea for you. I was not. And that would not be very taken kindly in the Labor Relations Act and in the labor court, so to say, the CCMA, Commission for Conciliation and Arbitration. That's what it's called. It will really not find that as a good practice of a leader. An autocratic leader is best suited for an organization where policies are strict. In such companies, creativity and initiative are at the lowest ebb. Everyone works in a system like a robot. So autocratic leaders want to make people behave like robots. If you are part of such a company, we advise you to move on, unless and until you are an autocratic leader yourself. Let's go on to another. It's called the hands-off leadership. The hands-off leadership is also called the laissez-faire leadership. And it is, these hand-off leaders are often part of the leadership style examples. Have you ever heard an expression from a leader that says, I leave this in your hands, I leave this thing in your capable hands, it is up to you how you do it? That's a kind of hands-off leadership. Laissez-faire leaders simply delegate tasks and expect their subordinates to complete those tasks to the best of their ability. They just dish out tasks, and they don't follow up, and they don't monitor, and they don't appraise, and they don't give feedback, and they don't check. They say you'll do it in the best of your ability. In other words, laissez-faire can be called over-delegation. Over-delegation. It's taking delegation to the extremes. Some call it a relegation. Instead of delegation, it's a relegation of duties. You are just taking your duties and giving them to someone without any training, without any capacity building, without any follow-up, without any feedback, without any comments, without any deadlines. And when the deadlines have come and they are required, things are required, we are running like a headless chicken, checking that particular person who you just relegated work to. These leaders are good in the sense that they are not strict on policies. They are not strict on policies. That's how good they are. And most of the employees don't like policies. When you say this is policy, this is standard, this is procedure, this is how to do work, most of the workers, most of the employees, most of the team members don't like that. And therefore, if they have a leader who's lax on policies, they enjoy that leader. Workers in a laissez-faire environment divine their working hours as long as they are completing their activities and meeting their desired quotas. Laissez-faire leaders are also recognize their employees who over-deliver and reward them accordingly. Those employees who can work under minimum supervision are best suited for laissez-faire leaders. There is a failure to understand that there are some people that can work without supervision, but there are others that work with supervision. So those that can work without supervision thrive under a laissez-faire leadership, but those that need constant supervision find it difficult to work in this circumstance because there is no one available for them. The next one is called the democratic leadership. Democracy defined is the government of the people, by the people, and with the people. That's democracy defined. So what it simply means is that when you are a democratic leader, you consult people, you work with people, you apply what people say, you make people vote over decisions, you make people vote who's going to be the next leader, you make people, participate fully, just like, in the government circles, where democracy involves elections every 5 years, every 10 years. I'm not sure of the time frame now, but after some time elections are held, and during those elections everyone that is capable to vote goes to the polling stations and they vote for the leader they want. And after the voting has happened, counting takes place. And when counting has taken place, then the one that has more votes becomes the leader. That's democracy. The one that has more votes becomes the leader of the country. Whether that person is it's not an issue, because people have voted. People have voted for that person, whether that person is corrupt or that person is whatever they are, because people have voted for them, they ascend into leadership. We have seen this a lot. I don't want to give examples. We have seen this a lot in the democracy, where people become leaders because of what is called popular opinions. And I don't think that kind of leadership works better in government, so not in government, in business environment, and in other environments. I don't think it works better in civil society, maybe also in the church. It doesn't work well. Some churches, they have it when they are choosing leaders, they vote. People lift up their hands and say, I'm voting so and so to be the next pastor, or I'm voting so and so to be the chairperson of the committee. And they apply some level of democracy, maybe on the governance side, and leave the spiritual side to those that have been called by God to handle them. But in some cases, they do the democracy for everything, whether the spiritual side or the governance side. And there are some churches where there is no democracy at all. It's autocracy, one person running the show. So those are the various leadership styles that we see time and again. So the democratic leader, we are aware that an autocratic leader makes you cringe, but sometimes the democratic leadership also may bring in other people that may not be necessarily good for the leadership space. But at least he is better than a narcissist leader, because he lines up everything with clarity. A narcissist leader will stab you in the back when you are least expecting it. Anyhow, democratic leaders foster discussions, they foster participation and different creative tactics. Since they are not entirely autocratic, they encourage their fellow team members to take initiative and outperform whenever that is possible. The last one in this discussion today is called the coaching leadership. Coaching leadership. Coach-style leadership is an effective method of taking your team forward. This is because a coach-style leader focuses on in-depth identification and nurturing the strengths of each and every member of their team. Instead of giving the same orders to everyone, this leader makes sure that they look at individuals differently in relationship to their strengths and their weaknesses. And the coaching leader is sometimes called the situational leader. That's another name for the coaching leader. This strategy will enable the team to work together through their own individual strengths, rather than trying to compete, rather than trying to outsmart each other, rather than trying to do something that they are not comfortable with and that they don't know. So the coach-style leadership is very similar to almost the strategic as well as the democratic leader in one way or the other, and the participative leader that we have talked about earlier. But the core focus of this is that the strategy is to increase the growth and the success of every individual member of the team. So the coaching leader ensures that every member of the team grows and their potential grows. When employees are groomed using this strategy, they are not forced to focus on similar skills and goals, and effective teams are formed, and their uniqueness and their difference is respected, and their feedback is also listened to, so that they grow and they become unique individuals that they are. I would like to stop it here for now, and thank you for listening. Please tune in again. Please like and subscribe and comment and follow us, and tell others to tell others, so that others will tell others, and others will also tell others.